Well, I was trying to think about that. When I read the news late last night, obviously both high-speed crashes affecting the tibia and the fibula. So there are, and I think it was probably the same leg. So I think there are some comparisons, but from the limited information that we have, and obviously, patient confidentiality is such that, we shouldn't expect to know everything. It does sound to be more serious. And I think that the headline news, Dave, are Tiger Woods has broken his leg. But what's behind that is very other important things that will determine his progress and also how he finally recovers. And so the first thing to consider is that this is an open injury, not a closed injury. So an open injury, as you, I'm sure, understand, means that the bones were exposed to the outside air. So that means that there is an increased risk of infection. And so, like all these operations, he'll had lots of antibiotics, etc. And so that's the first thing his surgeons have got to guard against. The second thing, reading this statement, is that he's fractured his leg at several positions. So it's not just 2 bits, it's in at least 3. And of course, that can affect healing times. The other important thing is that they've had to do, as part of that operation, which you often have to, is to do an emergency release of the muscles in his leg. Now, that's unfortunately something that has to be done commonly, because when you have such a high energy injury, the bleeding into the surrounding muscles is great, and it can compromise the health and livelihood of those muscles. So you have to release them so they can breathe again. So they've had to do that. And then the other important thing, although it may not seem so important to begin with, is that the statement says that he's also had injuries to his ankle and to his foot. And we know, as you appreciate, that if the fracture, it's one thing to break your bones, but they'll heal, hopefully. If the fracture goes into the ankle, then that may induce some longer term stiffness. And of course, we don't know the nature of the foot injuries. And it's often the foot and the ankle, the recovery from those injuries, which determine the long-term recovery as much or even more than what looks like the bigger injury to the shin. Because, the best case scenario for the tibia and the fibula fractures, high energy, should be healed somewhere between 12 and 20 weeks. But then you've got all of the other injuries that have got to heal as well. And I think what else, obviously we don't know, but I think it's possible that he might require further surgery. If they've had to open up and release all of his muscles, sometimes you have to go back and consider whether you've got to do a skin graft over that. If it was, as we said, open, they may decide they need to go back and wash it out again. And they may have to do much further down the line, later metalwork adjustments. So I think this is the beginning, tragically, of a long road for him. And of course, compared to Schumacher, he's 45, I think, isn't he? And we have to, and of course, as you know, Dave, he had his 5th spine surgery about 6 weeks ago. So it's an absolute tragedy.